The Thames Path, 185 miles from the source to the Woolwich Foot Tunnel in 15 days in August and September 2022. Contrary to my previous misconceptions about the Thames Path being flat, mundane, over-civilised and barely worth walking, I was genuinely surprised to discover that I had highly underestimated it. In fact, in retrospect, it turned out to be one of my all-time favourite trails. As the days passed, the river sort of sneaked its way into my soul as I cruised along through the days of late summer in a wonderful magical world full of an eclectic and wacky mix of people who I met on my journey. Halcyon days. The course of the river, which serves as a haven for wildlife and birdlife, is divided into roughly 3 sections. 1. The Upper Thames, which wends its way through tranquil countryside between the source and Goring Gap and is surprisingly isolated. 2. The Middle Thames, which flows serenely between Goring and Teddington and is lined with commuter and tourist towns and amazing affluent riverside properties. And 3. The Lower Thames, which runs between Teddington and the sea, with the river becoming tidal on its majestic journey through the metropolis. Along its route, it passes through 9 counties and past numerous historic sites and buildings and charming riverside pubs. It is also rich in cultural history, having inspired hundreds of writers, poets, painters, sculptors and musicians. Along its length there are 45 locks on the non-tidal section, 200 bridges, 27 tunnels and 6 ferry services. The official distance is 185.2 miles, but I actually walked 241.62 miles. After the remote and technically challenging Glyndor's Way in Wales, I was faced with an extreme trail of an entirely different nature. My challenge on the Thames Path was that, due to the hard flat surfaces I was walking on, caused by drought in the rural areas and tarmac in the urban sections, the tendons in my lower legs took a hammering, and I was fighting shin splints and tendinitis all the way. Who would ever have thought that walking in the hills and mountains would actually be easier than flat walking? Part 1. Shrewsbury Mead to Newbridge, 49 miles. Day 1. Shrewsbury Mead to Cricklade, 17 miles. To start my journey, I walked from the train station in the Cotswold village of Kemble to the source at Shrewsbury Mead, about 2 miles. Apparently the source has been dry for many years because the pumping station for the now disused Thames Severn Canal, which opened in 1789, took all the water from the underground springs that once rose in Shrewsbury Mead. However, due to the drought-like conditions in England during the summer of 2022, I walked for 12 miles before I started to see any water. Local people who I met en route told me that this was unprecedented. The official source of the River Thames at Shrewsbury Mead in Gloucestershire. A few miles down the river from the source, and I'm standing in the middle of the riverbed. It was like this almost all the way to Cricklade. I decided to rename the River Isis, which is derived from the Roman name for the river, and call it River Crisis instead, because it was as dry as a bone for the first 12 miles. In a normal year, you could expect to see water around 1 to 2 miles from the source. Most of the wild flowers were not faring well in the drought, but wild chicory was an exception. Chicory has medicinal properties similar to those of the dandelion. In other words, it's a tonic, laxative, and diuretic. Like flax, its flowers open in the morning when it is sunny and close in the afternoon. Wild carrot also seemed to be faring well. Traditionally, wild carrot has been used for treating urinary tract problems and gout. The Cotswold Country Park, a huge expanse of lakes rich in flora and fauna. The Cotswold Country Park again. The charming Cotswold village of Somerford Keynes. Bulrushes, which have astringent, diuretic, emmenagogue, hemostatic, refrigerant, sedative, and vulnerary properties. Speckled wood butterfly. First sighting of water in the river just outside Cricklade. The Thames as it enters Cricklade. Cricklade High Street. My B&B for the night, the White Hart Hotel in Cricklade. Royal Enfield motorcycle in Cricklade. Day 2, Cricklade to Lechlade, 13.5 miles. Finally, some decent water in the river just outside Cricklade. St Mary's Church, Castle Eaton. Artwork on the side of a camper van. Start of the navigable river just outside Inglesham. Church of St John the Baptist, Inglesham. Door of the 13th century Church of St John the Baptist, Inglesham. And the 17th and 18th century pulpit. The Victorian designer William Morris, who lived nearby at Kelmscott, was responsible for overseeing the restoration of this church in the 19th century. Approaching Lechlade with purple loosestrife in the foreground. Purple loosestrife has traditionally been used as a treatment for diarrhea, chronic intestinal catarrh, hemorrhoids, eczema, varicose veins, and bleeding of the gums. The Riverside at Lechlade. View eastwards from the bridge at Lechlade. Lechlade Bridge. Day 3, Lechlade to Newbridge, 18.2 miles. Leaving Lechlade with St Lawrence Church in the background and heading off to complete one of the longest, most isolated and wildest sections of the trail. First of the 45 locks on the Thames, St John's Lock. Statue of Father Thames at St John's Lock by the Italian sculptor Raphael Monti. Bridge just past St John's Lock. Pillbox near Buscott. View of the river from inside the pillbox. Buscott Lock, the second lock on the Thames. Approaching Kelmscott Manor. Kelmscott Manor, the home of William Morris from 1871 until his death. William Morris was a poet, novelist, translator, textile designer, social reformer, and founder of the Victorian arts and crafts movement. The manor was closed when I walked past, but a nice security guard gave me a sneaky peek. Grafton Lock. Topiary cat at Grafton Lock. I met these two brilliant chaps who were rowing down the Thames for a charity called FOP, Fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva. We had great fun racing each other all the way to Newbridge, and I beat them by a hair's breadth. Radcot Bridge, claimed to be the oldest bridge on the Thames. Radcot Bridge. Radcot Bridge campsite had yurts, shepherd's huts, and glamping pods. Radcot Lock. Brilliant company name. Rushy Lock. Tadpole Bridge. Chimney Meadows Nature Reserve. The otter conspiracy thickens as they continue to avoid me. I had my lunch in this peaceful RSPB hide at Chimney Meadows, Duxford Old River. Wowee! I met a naked rambler on a remote section of the trail just past Shifford Lock. Impossible not to take a sneaky peek at the elephants in the room. I do seem to meet all sorts of weird and wonderful people on my walks, but can I meet an otter? It's been one of my greatest wishes to see an otter in the wild, but I think there's an otter conspiracy designed to prevent me from clapping eyes on one. Still, I live in hope. I should just add that the naked rambler was accompanied by a naked dog. After completing my first 3 days on the Thames path, I posted these two photos of the naked rambler and me on a walker's social media group because I felt that it added another dimension to our favourite pastime, i.e. walking, with the following caption: incredibly brave or bonkers. My post sparked off a tremendous debate incorporating a huge range of heated and diverse opinions, both in support of and opposed to the subject of naked rambling. Many women and some men said that they would feel uncomfortable, intimidated, unsafe, or even scared if they met a naked walker, and that they certainly wouldn't do it themselves. Others said that they would find it slightly disturbing, thought that it was a selfish pastime and or pure exhibitionism, and quite frankly, weird. Others thought that there was a time and a place for nudity, but that a public footpath was not the place. Those defending naked rambling, both men and women, were equally vociferous on the subject and said that they couldn't see that it was a problem. We should honour and not be ashamed of our bodies, they said, and that anyone who found it disturbing needed to get a life. They said that it represented freedom from wearing a uniform and created a connection with nature. They cited the numerous health benefits to be derived from not wearing clothes, e.g., healthier skin because wearing clothes restricts blood flow to the skin, and boosting the immune system by increasing the uptake of vitamin D. Some even said that it was their way of dealing with stress and depression. Apparently, it is not illegal to be naked in public as long as it can be proved that the intention is not to cause alarm or distress. Regardless of your views on this subject, and I believe they are all equally valid, I would just like to clarify that the naked rambler who I met on the Thames path posed absolutely no threat whatsoever. I have met far worse, mainly dogs, on my various walking adventures over the years. He was polite, considerate, entertaining, and really enjoying his stroll on a lovely sunny afternoon. He told me that he had deliberately chosen to walk on one of the quietest sections of the trail, and believe it or not, the Thames path does have some pretty remote sections, in order to avoid causing offence. We had a great chat, and when I asked him how people reacted when they met him, he said that most people simply took it in their stride. No pun intended, although occasionally he had been subjected to rather nasty verbal abuse. Approaching Newbridge, the second oldest bridge over the Thames. Newbridge and the Maybush pub. The Rose revived, Newbridge. Newbridge, looking east, and the end of my first 3 days on the trail. I then returned home for 4 days before resuming my journey the following week. See Part 4 for lessons learnt.